Cloud. Hey, the recording is in progress. I'm going to edit this front part out. You kind of like fade it in. So, all right. So here we go. So, hey guys, welcome everyone to Rock and Faith. We're just excited that everybody's here today. We got a great show for you today. My name is Scott Thompson. I'm with the Blameless Project. And I, of course, have with me the guy that, if you come and see us live, he's always on my left-hand side. Unless we're kind of standing next to each other, it might switch up, or, he might move to my right side. But most of the time, he's on my left. And what's really cool is that he's shredding lead guitar. And he's like the newest, as I'm the original member of the Blameless Project, he's the newest member of the Blameless Project. And I'm blessed to call him a really good friend, Jay Swift, and he's going to be actually like hosting and conducting the show today. But before I let him do that, I want to introduce another good friend of mine that I've known him for years. I'm not sure for how many years. I'm going to say at least 6 years, because the band, the Blameless Project, we're about to celebrate our 9th birthday. October of 2023 will be our 9th birthday. And I know that that Danny's band is a little older than that, but we've shared the stage many times with Danny's band. And I'm going to say we at least go back 6, maybe 7 years. Not sure the first time we actually got to share a stage together, but ever since then, I've been a great fan. So I'm going to introduce to all of you right now, Danny Viera, from Crimson Rain. He's their front man, lead guitar player, and he'll tell you all about his band and who he is and what he does. And we're just blessed to have Danny on the show today. So welcome, Danny. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jay. And again, as I always do, I'm going to sit back and try to listen and not interrupt. It's hard for me because as I'm listening to Jay ask questions and whoever we're talking to answer questions, as you could tell already, I like to talk. And that's why I'm a lead singer in a band. That I get the mic, I get to talk, I get to do all that stuff. But no, right now I'm going to turn it over to Jay Swift. And hey, take it away, Jay. Thanks, man.
All right, thank you, Scott, and Denny. Thanks again for being here. It's always great for me to have another guitar player on, right? Step something in common, and we things to talk about, right? Things to talk about that other people just wouldn't get that aren't guitar players, which is always fun.
But I'm quickly become a different kind of podcast.
Right, exactly. So having said that, I just want to jump right into the questions so we can get rolling, because it tends to take on a life of its own once the questions start going. So my first question for you is how did you become interested in music?
So growing up, I have 2 brothers, and my dad worked full time. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So my dad played guitar from when I was a young boy. He played at music teams at church. And my earliest memories of music was my dad playing guitar on the couch and just, being a young kid, just sitting there enthralled, just watching him and just falling in love with it. And when I was very young, he bought me like a $30 cheap guitar and taught me 3 chords. It was AED, which is pretty much every AC/DC song. But that was pretty much it. It was just being a young kid and listening to my dad. He'd get home from work, take out his guitar, and just start playing, and me and my brothers would just sit there and watch.
Okay, all right. So he's like inspired by your dad, which is pretty cool, right? It's probably like almost like a little family gathering, every night. So, and I mean, that kind of leads me to the next question that I have is that especially for guys like us, like the question is what attracted you to the guitar? And I know that you just said that your dad was playing and all of that, but like what really drove you to learn how to play it beyond those 3 chords, and kind of expand your horizons in that?
So there's kind of a couple different answers to that. Growing up was kind of like, in my opinion, where the coffee house scene around Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts was kind of at its peak. There was a place, Crossroads Coffee House, that was in Cranston. And I mean, it would be 300-400 people coming to see these bands, and those bands like Raging Grace and Brethren, Elijah, Thirsty Child, like all these bands that would just draw people. And I remember Don McLean coming, and there was almost 1,000 people outside of the place. And I was young going to these events because my dad was involved with the coffee house scene. He wasn't playing, but he was just, helping out. And I remember seeing Ray Tierney and Smitty, who was a drummer for Brother and all these guys and just being like, I want to do that. This is what I want to do. I want to be a musician. And that kind of led off into, I mean, some of my personal favorites. I got into bands like Creed. Mark Tremonti, in my opinion, is probably one of the top guitar players of my era. I really got into Van Halen. And, Eddie Van Halen is Eddie Van Halen. And I'm
Right.
seeing all these guys, and I'm like, that's really what I want to do. And I'm lucky because my father never told me, oh, you can't listen to this certain kind of music. You can't do this. He never put any restrictions on what I could listen to. So I just found myself getting into every single kind of music that I could possibly find. And I was like, you know what, I want to be a guitar player.
Right. No, that's cool. And that's great. So that, and again, we all find that, inspiration from other types of music, which also kind of leads me to my next question, which is, what's your favorite genre of music?
Oh, that is hard for me. That is very hard for me.
I mean,
It changes.
you don't have to narrow it down to like one, like it's actually, for me, it's just, it's hard rock and metal, right? But you don't have to narrow it down to one. I mean, if you have like a top 3 or 4, that's fine too, because like in if you're going to name a top 3 or 4, like where do you draw inspiration from each one of those?
All right. So if I'm thinking of that, I'd say definitely top is hard rock and metal. Bands like, if you want to go the Christian side, Striper, and my headphones falling out.
Okay.
Bands like Striper, Metallica was a very early influence, Van Halen,
Okay.
and then more modern, Korn, Slipknot. I love that aggressive kind of music. That kind of Alter Bridge, that kind of influences my songwriting or just music guitar player as far as like how I play, how I write riffs, how I think about things. But I also really get into prog music as far as the weird time signatures. There's a band, Neil Morse band, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
ELO, uh, Yes, Kansas, a lot of the classic rock. So I'd say if it was the top 3 for me, would probably be definitely number 1 would be hard rock and then prog, and then probably classic rock.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I love progressive too. I mean, I'm a really big Dream Theater guy. So, John Petrucci and
What got me into Neil Morse was the fact that Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater is the drummer for the Neil Morse band.
right.
And that's
Yeah.
that's what made me love Neil Morse, and that's what made me find him. Was I was like, oh, cool, it's another Mike Portnoy project.
Right. Yeah. And he's got like 25. Mike Portnoy's got like 25 projects
Yeah.
going on at one time. I actually got to see him live just a few months ago. I saw him and John Petrucci on Petrucci's solo tour. So
Yeah.
he came in and played drums. I saw him at the Ridgefield Playhouse. There were like 300 of us there, right? Very small venue. So I was like 10 feet away from him, and like it's just, I mean, I'm pretty much speechless as to like how amazing of a drummer he is. I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody that John and Petrucci was great too, but like as a drummer, I'm kind of like I mean, as a guitar player, I'm also a closet drummer. So like, you know what I mean? So yeah, so I look at drummers sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, right, exactly. You know what I mean? Like Scott could tell you, like I have an electronic kit here at the house. You know what I mean? So like, that I play. So it's like, I think every guitar player in inside wants to be a great drummer, right? You know what I mean? So I always look at Portnoy as like, oh man, if I could have any drummer in the world, it would be that guy right there.
We'll be at practice, and my drummer Craig will go outside to use the bathroom or grab something from the front desk where we practice at the studio. He comes back, I'm on the drum kit, and he's like, really I've been gone for 2 seconds.
Danny, yeah. I think Danny does have a little bit of drumming in him. I've heard him talk about it before. I don't think I've ever heard you play drums, but
I try not to anymore because I'm not as good as I think I am.
Well, that may be true of every guitar player that plays the drums. I mean, I'm gonna admit that myself as well, but it's still it's just too much fun, right? It is too much fun. All right, so on to the next questions as we roll here. So, like, what inspired you to start songwriting?
So a lot of my songwriting comes from my personal life, whether it's in the moment or stuff from my past or situations that have happened. Um, I try not to write like I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but it's not like I'm sitting there looking at a scripture and trying to write based off the Word of God. I'm trying to write based on how the Word of God and how my faith has helped me with situations in my life. So a lot of my songs come from more of a personal place. I try to make it vague enough where people can take what they want from it. I don't really want it to be if you believe in God, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. But if you don't, you're still going to find a message of hope through what I'm writing. Um, you know, just about being a better person, trying to be there for someone. I just try to make it very vague, I guess, in a way. But a lot of it comes from personal experiences, things that have happened in my life. Um, the most recent song I wrote was called "Fill Me Up," and that came from literally a very personal time in my life when I was struggling with alcohol. And so I don't make it about myself, but I try to, if someone had that struggle with alcohol in their life, then they could probably get where I was coming from in that song.
Cool. Right. No, and that's great. And I think that it's great that you're able to, like, I don't think people that don't perform live or songwrite don't realize just like how much strength it takes to write a song like that and then to perform it live, right? You took your own personal experience, your personal problem, you put it into a song, and then you're going to present that to the world, right? So, in an effort to not just help yourself, but maybe help other people in the same way, right? And
Yeah, and it's
very,
cathartic for it's cathartic for you, but also, if there's one person that can get something out of that song and that can say, man, I realize that I've been going about this the wrong way. I need to change my life. I need to focus on something. I need to be a better person. Then that's really what I want my music to do.
right. That is awesome, and I like the fact that you're also, when you're writing your songs, you're attempting to reach people, maybe a non-Christian audience at the same time, right? Just like that they'll be able to understand the message of the song as well. So as Scott can tell you, it's kind of interesting is that, like, I don't come from a religious background. Like, I never went to church as a kid, like, was never discussed in my household. My first introduction to Jesus, honest to God, was through Striper. When I was like, that was when, like, I mean, it was just never brought up. We just didn't talk about it at home. It wasn't like it was nothing. Nothing was ever said against religion, but it was just not part of my upbringing, right? Just wasn't. We never talked about it. So it does make a difference when, as a songwriter, you put it out there, right? And like you said, if it helps you, then you've won. Like, you've actually done something with your music, which is pretty cool. I think that's pretty awesome. That is pretty
Love
great.
it.
Yeah, it is great. So, all right. So again, now, along those lines, like, what was it that, created the desire for you to bring your faith into your songwriting? Is that something that was always there, or did you make a conscious effort at some point? Because, I mean, when you're younger, you're listening to Metallica, Van Halen, along with all the Christian bands that you were listening to, but you still had, all these other bands that you were listening to. So what made you go that direction, that faith-based direction?
So that kind of holds a line with how Crimson got its beginning. Um, so I grew up in a very Christian home, and right around the time that I started getting into bands like Creed and Metallica and things like that, my dad decided to start Crimson, and this was in 2003. So this is actually our 20th year. being in
Wow.
bands. It was a lot. It was a lot different back then. Like if you go way back and listen, please don't go way back and listen. Um,
Oh yeah.
but
Listen, we're,
you know,
we're all there. I know exactly what you're getting at.
my dad wanted, you know, he wanted me to go down the right path, but he also didn't want to limit me on what I could do. So he decided we were going to start a band together. And I came up with the name Crimson Rain, and we started a band together. And his idea was that somewhere down the line, he was going to back away. It would be me and guys my age, and we'd go do our own thing. So I started songwriting based off that. So I always had that basis of I grew up in the church. In my household, it was you want to live here, you go to church. Not in a bad way, but that's just the way it
No,
was.
I hear you. Right. That's what you guys did.
I grew up in the church, and so it was always part of me. I've written songs that aren't fit for Crimson Rain. I've written songs that aren't fit for the church. Not that they're necessarily bad, but they're more personal to me, or love songs to my wife or something like that. But it's always been there. I can't really pinpoint like when it happened because ever since I was a young kid, I was 13 at the time Crimson Rain came about. Um, you know, it just was always there.
Okay. Right. That's pretty
So
cool that
cool.
your dad did that and kind of helped you go down that direction, and it's like, hey, I think this would be good for him, right? And stepped in and gave you an outlet.
The funny part is it started off as like at some point he was going to step away, but there was no one else that stepped up. And now I don't think Crimson Rain would be Crimson Rain without me or my dad as a part of it.
Right.
No.
Like he started it as something for me, and it began to be something that was me and him, and the relationship that we have, and songs that we write, the way that we sing together, the way that we play together. I don't really think there's an there's a lot better bands than us, but I don't think there's a band that's like us with the way me and my dad work off each other.
And that's cool. And I think that brings up a really a point that I'd like to make, like as you say, like bands better than us, right? And we can sit here and talk about other guitar players and musicians and singers and who's better than who and everything else. And I think you reach a point. Well, I don't think I know it as an artist. You reach a point where like it's not about how good you are, right? It's how you relate to your audience. You know what I mean? And in that sense, and what it is that you bring to the table. So I mean, to sit here and say that, oh, Yngwie Malmsteen is so much better than BB King. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're right. They're both amazing guitar players, right? But they do two totally different things, right? There's no good or bad there. And I think that can be said of, the Blameless Project or Crimson Rain, right? Like what we bring to the table, even though in both in a sense is like it's Christian music, but the bands are also very different in what their shows are like and the kind of music that they the way our music sounds and how we present ourselves. So it's
And not to go down the guitar player path, but like Scott said earlier that you're very much a shredder, and anytime that I've seen you, I remember the first time I seen you play, I was like, oh my god, he's phenomenal.
Well,
But
thank you.
I'm not. I'm not a shredder.
Right.
That's not the way I play. I love it. I mean, Mark Tremonti, John Petrucci, like I love those guys. That's just not the way that I play. But it doesn't mean someone's better than the other. It just means we have our styles.
Right, exactly.
Like,
You're just different. That's all it is, And,
I can respect how much talent and effort it takes to play that way, and I can respect, like when I see you guys play, like how tight you are and how well you play together. But it doesn't necessarily mean that this one's better than that one. I've never looked at it that way. All I've looked at it is, man, that's a good band.
yeah, and that's the way you should look at it. It's a really healthy perspective to have too, I think, for anybody that listens to music, whether you're a musician or a fan. And I tell people all the time, like, they'll you know, they'll see me play, and you know, and they might be like, wow, like, oh my god, like you play so fast and you do all these things, and that's great. Like, you know, okay, let's do this Eric Clapton cover. And I'll be like, you want me to play an Eric Clapton cover? Like, I'm gonna tell you, like, like let's be 100% clear. This is gonna sound not great. You know, it's just not, because like I don't feel music like that. I just don't, right? And quite frankly, you know, there are times, you know, when, you know, I wish that, you know, like I could play on a more emotional level, right? That which I'm unable to do. Like, you know, to be honest, like I'm not gonna lie, man. Like I'm never gonna be able to play the guitar like you play the guitar. I'm just not. It's just not. It's not. I don't think it's within my DNA to do it. And you know, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that just that point that goes out there is just, you know, like people play, artists play like they play, and they become really good at what they do. You know, and that's the whole idea, right? So you can't make those comparisons.
I'm gonna break my rule and interrupt here because it's like I'm sitting here laughing, listening to Jay talk about how he's not gonna play. And we just, you know, it's been it'll be, I don't know, it's about 9 months since we released our last CD. And we brought Jay in. And when we brought Jay in a year and a half ago, we were in the midst of recording that record. And it was like, hey Jay, here's a bunch of new songs. Guess what you get to do? You get to write the leads to all of them, you know. And there's some songs like Not Gonna Die and things like that that are not metal songs, not really designed for shredding. In some way, somehow Jay was actually able to, I'm not saying this in a bad way, I'm saying this in I was amazed way, that's the way I'm saying it, how he was able to take some of these songs and just rip through them and come up with not just shredding, but some melodic stuff too. And I was like, I think even Jay surprised himself. So never say never. I
Every
watched
once
him
in a
do
while,
it.
I get lucky. That's what happens. What he's not telling you is I sat in front of my PC going over those songs. Is like, you know, took me like the you know the faster, more hard rock songs. You know, okay, maybe it took me like an hour to write the solo for that. But then, you know, like Not Gonna Die, I think that was like 3 days of like, you know, like just sitting in front of the computer for 8 hours, pulling my hair out, trying to figure out what I was going to do with this thing. You know what I mean? And that's where it was. So it's definitely, you know, it's definitely difficult. So anyway, back to you. What about your current project? So you have, I mean, obviously you have your thing going with Crimson Rain. Is there anything else that you're doing?
Currently, no. So every once in a while, I'll do a solo gig.
Okay.
I did a gig. We did a benefit for the bass player for Crimson. His name is Brian Heil. He has a foundation called Fierce, which is a nonprofit in his daughter's memory. His daughter passed away in a car accident. Um, that it's basically a pay it forward. You know, be a good person. You know, you see someone on the side of the road, buy him a coffee. You go to Dunkin' Donuts, you give a pay for Shannon ticket, you give it to the person, and you pay for their breakfast. And it's just being a good person in memory of his daughter. It's a wonderful foundation. So we did an event um, in Burrville where we had two non-Christian bands and us play. And then we were supposed to have a fourth band, but they backed out at the last second. So I put back together a project I used to have, which is called Collision, which was myself and a good friend of mine, Nat Phillips. He has his own company called Bad Boy Entertainment. We had got together, and I was, you know, doing secular covers, solo gigs. We had put, you know, 2, 3 guys from different bands together and just called it Collision. It's a collision of bands coming together, just having fun. We would do a bunch of different covers, stuff that was way out there. And we really wouldn't do it true to the album. It would kind of be like our rendition of it.
Okay.
So I brought that back for a little bit. We did that one gig. I'm not saying that it won't come back again, but for right now, I've really been focusing on Crimson just because we are 20 years in. So I know the end is probably coming soon. So I want to make sure I spend as much time with it as I can.
Right. No, that makes sense too. Right. 20 years is a long time. You got to finish strong. Right. You know, absolutely. Which is cool.
I never wanted to be the guy that, I want to go out at when we're at the top of our game. I don't want to overreach our woman, I guess.
Yeah, well, that is the key, right? You know, to win the Super Bowl and then go.
Yeah, I don't want to be Brett Favre. I don't want to keep on retiring.
That's right, right. You know, end up, where am I playing for the Jets? How did that happen? Right, you know. So, all right, then on a personal level, you know, have you realized your musical goals?
Well, I'd like to shred like you can.
Listen, I'll bring a metronome to the next show we do together, and I'll just I'll show you how to spend, you know, a ridiculous amount of time just suffering. Just going. That's it. So yeah, I mean,
musical goal for me is mainly I don't ever want to limit myself. So I try to listen to more and more obscure music or things that are kind of way beyond what I could play. Um, we cover a song by Neil Morse called Temple of the Living God, which I know both of you have heard. And right before we started doing that, I went to go see Brit Floyd, which is a Pink Floyd cover band. And I'm listening to all these guitar parts, and I'm like, my God, David, amazing.
Yeah.
And like you said, with yours was the fast shredding. I'm listening to David Gilmour, and I'm like, I can do that. I can do that, like melodic, like all those bends and just making it creepy but good. So I left there and we went to go to practice, and I've probably don't do it the same way anymore. But I did this lead, and my dad goes, "Did you just listen to Pink Floyd or something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, I just went to go see him. Well, not Pink Floyd, but I went to go see a cover band."
Right.
And like my musical goals is always to push myself farther because I never thought I could do that. And now I don't think I could shred, but I want to try. I never thought I could play like Mark Tremonti, but you know, I just recently saw Alter Bridge, and you know, I want to try to continuously push myself because the better the music gets, the better my guitar playing gets, the better the songwriting gets. With the message that I have, more people are going to be receptive to the message if the music is good. If they can be like, "Oh my God, that's really great. Let me listen to this," then I want someone to hear a message of hope through good music.
Yeah, wow. That in and of itself is a great message. I mean, you know, that would make a great TV commercial, you know, for like, you know, for people, you know, learning to try to be better musicians, right? I mean, that's just incredible. That's arguably the best answer I've ever heard. Wow.
Awesome.
Okay. So what keeps you playing, performing, and writing? I think you just kind of touched on it, but that's, you know,
I mean, it's definitely what we just spoke about, you know,
Yeah.
wanting that message of hope to come through. As a musician, what wants me to keep going, you know, and I'm not saying this because I'm talking to you, but you know, the first time I saw you, I was like, man, I got to get better. You know, I see guitar players all the time, and I'm like, man, I got to get better. I got to get better. I think that continuous strive to try to be the best that I can be, but just trying to keep pushing on. And as far as songwriting is, I've never thought I've been the best songwriter. I just think I've been very honest. You know, actually, I've been accused of being way too honest. There's been times where there was actually we played a festival in Holt State Park in Bristol, Rhode Island, and there was a Christian newsletter that was there that was like, "Oh, can we speak to you for a little bit?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." They're like, "When you were up there, you said a lot of stuff you shouldn't have said. Do you think you're too honest?" And I'm like, "I don't know what being too honest means. I'm being honest.
Exactly.
just being me.
Like
Right?
this is who I am. It comes out through my songwriting. I even think it comes out through my playing. If I make a mistake, if you ever if anyone ever sees me live, when I make a mistake, you know I made a mistake."
I think you've let us know a couple of times.
Yeah, that's
Like, by the way, that was a mistake.
yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Well, we've all been there, dude.
We do it too.
I have this thing. Me and my dad have this thing. If I hear a mistake that he does, or he hears a mistake that I do, and we don't care, we could be in front of 100 people, 400 people, 5,000 people. I'll just look at him. I'll go, bing. And if I do it, he'll just look at me and go, bing. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, we in the Blameless Project, we all know when we've made a mistake because Charlie looks at us. No matter where we are, he turns around and gives us that look, and we're laughing. It's all good, but like, especially if it's like a common one that we know we made the mistake, right? And we're just kind of like, oh man, right? Like you just said, that's our Bing, right? And
oh yeah,
it's Charlie giving you that side.
Charlie is the big one.
Yeah, like I caught that. Don't think I didn't hear that, Jay. I know you did that, right?
Oh,
So
he'll laugh at you in the middle of the song. We're rehearsing, and all of a sudden you start hearing that only Charlie can laugh the way Charlie does. I know he's going to watch this episode, and that's okay. But only Charlie can laugh the way Charlie does, and he'll do it in the middle of the song. And like, okay, who made the mistake?
Right, yeah, and he's cracking up, looking around. Yeah, exactly.
Was it me?
Yeah, or my personal favorite is when all of us, like, somebody makes a mistake, and like I'll make a mistake, and then I'll look over at the guys to like laugh and give them the, hey, sorry, but then they're looking at their guitars because they're like, was it me? Like, everybody's trying to figure out if it was them. You know what I mean? It's the funniest thing ever. So, but that's just that rehearsal.
You have the privilege of being you have 2 electric guitars in the band. I'm the only electric guitar player in my band. So when I make a mistake, everyone knows it's me.
That is true. Like, what's interesting is this is the first band I've ever played in where
three.
Where I have other guitar players.
Sometimes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, sometimes, right. But like, so I know what that feels like. It's like one wrong note and that's it. And especially if you've got the delay on, everybody gets to hear it twice, right?
See, now that Scott corrected me, so you have the privilege of, like, if you make a mistake, you can be like, oh, that was Scott's fault.
Always.
Always. What are these guys doing over here, right? Yeah.
In fact, Scott's the one who wants to
that was me.
That was me. The big red flag goes up. Yeah. And that's that's live performance too, right? Which is what makes it great. So speaking of live performance, as a guitar player, and other guitar players will be watching this, and I'm curious, like what does your what's your rig look like? What's the favorite guitar you like to use live, and amplifier effects? Like what do you roll with on a normal show?
So the amp I have is a Vox AC30 Classic. Actually, goes for about $2,500. I got it for like literally nothing. It was gifted to me.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I absolutely love it. I typically go with my I have a custom made Telecaster. It was made for me by a brother by the name of Fran Viera. He was making his own custom made basses. And I had made a joke once about, like, hey, just make me a guitar. It's just 2 more strings. And, he ended up making the guitar player for his band a guitar. And I was like, man, that looks great. He's like, oh, I'll make you one. So it's a custom made Telecaster, but it has Seymour Duncans in it.
Okay.
And it's an absolute beast. I love it. I also run a Schecter C1 Classic that I've had since I was a kid. I absolutely love that guitar. If I had my dream guitar, it would be a Tremonti PRS.
Okay.
I think they're absolutely beautiful. I run a very simple pedal board. I run the amp dry, kind of the striper tone of like extremely high gain, and then mids and bass kind of knocked off. But I just run a Echoplex delay. There's a company, Joyo, out of Japan. It's kind of like a knockoff brand.
Yep.
I use that for my my overdrive. I got an EP booster, a Jimi Hendrix wah-wah pedal.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. I don't really do much. I have other stuff that I use at home, just like phasers and different things that I goof around with. But live, it's pretty much just overdrive, boost, delay, and that's it.
Right. Just a kind of a stripped down way to go version. And listen, an AC30, I mean, come on. I mean, that's like such a classic rock amp, I mean, it's especially, they're not even easy to come by, You know what I mean? Like, unless you're buying a brand new and spending a lot of money, they're like, you
No,
don't see the actual AC30s around that much.
I was lucky. The guy that I got it from, um, his name is Jeff Siemens. He used to play for another Christian local band, Fort Cross. He had it. He used it all the time, but he got tired of carrying it. So he bought an AC15. And he's
Okay.
like, "Hey, you want to buy this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'll try it out first." So I tried it out, fell in love with it. And I was like, "All right, how much you want for it?" He goes, you already got it. Just take it. I was
All right.
like, okay.
But hey, but listen, so you took that gift and you put it to good use, right? I mean, how many
Big time.
live shows have you done with it? And played played great music for people. I mean, absolutely. So it was definitely didn't go into your closet and just sit there, right? And,
I
and
think
yeah.
I think the first time that we met Jay, I think I actually offered if you wanted to use it because we were doing a gig together and it was
Yep.
on stage. I'm just like, "Yep, if you want to use it, it's all yours."
Yeah, and I had never played through a Vox before, and I do appreciate that offer, but I was just like, I had to stick with what I had. I'm also like, when I play live, like I have to be in complete control of my rig. I'm not really comfortable showing up and just kind of being like, okay, I'm going to use somebody else's amplifier. You know what I'm saying? Because the textures are so different especially like between an AC30 and a Marshall, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Are very different. And as Scott can tell you, like I just redid my whole rig. And
Your whole everything.
I did my whole everything. So now, like I got a Dean USA, 7-string guitar now, and I got rid of all my amplifiers, and I bought a Kemper Profiler. So and I'm running that Kemper Profiler through two 1x12 Hughes and Kettner's cabinets with vintage 30 Celestion speakers in it. And it's like, you can ask Scott. I mean, it's just like,
It's scary.
it's like,
Well, the Kemper is amazing, and actually the Celestials, that's the same speakers I have in the box.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what comes in those.
They kill.
Yeah, they're amazing. I mean, and what's interesting is that the Celestion I had in my Marshall, it's not a vintage 30, and like these two speakers are just like, it's ridiculous the difference in sound. You'll hear it the next time you hear us play, the next time we play together. I mean, it's so big I have to back things off. Like, I've never had to do that before, so which is fun. And so then I finally with the Kemper being able to profile all these different sounds, what I'm hoping to do is like to kind of control my amp envy a little bit, right? You know what I mean? Because I mean, I don't know how you are, but I'm like, okay, I've got this Marshall and it sounds great, but like, what if I had a Splon? What would that sound like? And then I'd have this Splon and I'd be like, but I should try 6505, and suddenly I've I've got more amps that I know what to do with. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Well, the guy that I did Collision with, the bass player, his name's Jack Blade. He has a band, Wuhan, and they're phenomenal cover band. Their guitar player, this guy Don Ferry, he has a Mesa Boogie, a rectifier, and I
Yep.
went and I saw him, and I'm like, I want that. Like, it's totally not my tone at all.
No.
It's completely different, but it was absolutely beautiful. I'm like,
that
yeah, I
that
want that.
that rectifier has been on like so many really really heavy albums, newer heavy albums. So like when you hear that sound, you hear it and you're like, wait, but I need that for my living room too, right? So because I'm going to crank that up. I totally get it. But as guitar players, that's what happens, right? You show up and you're like, oh, that's a cool tone, where's that coming from, right? And then we get hooked, and we want to make it our own. So it's
what I'm hearing is that Charlie needs to up his game a little bit and get a little bit of a bigger rig.
yeah that may happen, right? You know what I mean? I'll have to bring that up at the show on the next show we do on Sunday. So be like, you're gonna have to do something.
Yeah, as we're recording this, we were talking about it before we press play or press record. We have the Blameless Project's going to go play at a what is it, like an open jam thing, and this is where we came up with the term, or I did, punch in the face. We're going to go do a 4-song rock show, punch in the face, at this place where they're going to hear music that they wouldn't normally hear in the place that we're going to play. So yeah, we can bring it up with Charlie. But actually, if you remember, Jay, at this place, they've got the back line set up for us. You're going to bring your Kemper, then that's
Right.
cool. So you'll have your rig, but Charlie and I are leaving our combos at home. I'm not saying rigs because my Viera is not a rig; it's a combo amp.
It's still rig. Whatever you play through.
Okay, it's my rig. My rig is my
your rig.
pedals.
That's your rig.
But
You know.
but we'll have to talk to Charlie. But Charlie is, he's still really high on his Black Star.
Right.
But I think you're right. We have to make it a little bit, maybe
A little bit bigger.
A little taller. At least as tall as him.
Put a cab underneath.
Yeah, there you
put
go.
a little cab under it. Yeah, exactly.
Pick it up a little bit. There you go.
Put some Celestians in there, and yeah.
Right. And we'll get it rolling. So yeah, so like always trying to make things better and expand. And even for me, like going to the 7-string now from the 6-string, it was trying to like, all right, what else can I do? You know what I mean? So just make it a little bit more interesting. And that's where I am. And that is all the questions I have for you, man. That's
Wow.
that is it. But like some amazing answers, I super appreciate you being here. And that was great. And thank you very much. I'm sure people are going to enjoy listening to the podcast and everything that you had to say.
Well, there's one thing I'd like to say before we end.
Sure, absolutely.
Because Scott, you mentioned it in the beginning that you didn't remember when we met.
Okay.
Kind of a little bit offended by that.
Oh, no. I remember when. I don't remember what year it was. I don't remember
what year either, but do you remember when?
Oh, of course. And I remember the that stage and the big field. And what's the name of that park? That big park that's on the river. I'm pretty sure that was the first place that we played.
Are you talking about Shabu?
Nope, not Shabu. It was before Shabu. It was before we ever played Shabu. It was a festival that a couple that doesn't live here. They moved out of Connecticut, and they ran the thing. And I remember this. There was a bunch on that park. The whole like perimeter of the park had tents with different Christian ministries, and then we were in that stage with a covering. In fact, I've got pictures of it on our YouTube page. And we all shared the stage.
We're talking about the same thing. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember the name.
Yeah.
But we didn't really speak. We played together, but we didn't really speak.
Right.
And then we met again at Shabu.
Yes.
And that's when you had me come up and do the Alter Bridge song.
That's right. We did.
And that's kind of where the relationship and the friendship started, was
right.
Because I'm a fish out of water without a guitar in my hands. I don't like being on stage without a guitar in my hands. I don't know, Jay, if you're the same way. It's like my comfort zone. I don't like being without the guitar. So when you asked me to come up and sing with you, I was like, oh God, this is going to be bad. And you were getting right in my face and just, pushing me to be more. And that's really when I was like, you know what? I think I got something with these guys. And I think these two bands are really going to have something together. And we've done so many gigs with them together.
We have, and I think that we're going to continue. I'm getting all kinds of ideas as we've done this podcast and sitting and listening to you guys talk and everything. And I'm getting, some ideas for us to kind of, turn up the heat a little bit and do some more things together. I think it's time to do that. You talked about the peak of the coffee house scene when you came in when you were a kid, and you started going and watching, and bands like Raging Grace were playing, and 300 people would go to a coffee house. And we know that right now that's not what the coffee house scene is anymore.
No.
But I think that our two bands work so well together on the same stage. We're a great same stage band. That first day that I saw you guys playing, no, we didn't meet then, but I'm like, wow, this Crimson Rain band, these guys, they are good. I love listening to these guys. It was awesome. And then we got to the Shabu, and we met, and we brought you up, and we've both bands have brought each other up, and I still have the video of that that time when we brought you up to sing the Alter Bridge tune with us, with you and I singing, Danny. And it's really cool. It's a good video. I think I've got it saved somewhere. We could put it up as somewhere on YouTube or something like that, and I'll try to share it with you. But it's really cool, man. It was awesome. It was awesome that day when we did it. But I think that going forward, I think there's some cool stuff that we can do together. I think that that's, bigger venues, bigger opportunities with a cause, things like that. We can work on some things. And then I wanted to also say this. I held this for the end because Danny, I wrote it down. I was taking notes. Your first 3 chords that your dad showed you were A, E, and D. And
don't even say what I think you're about to say.
You guys have a song that we covered.
I knew you were going to go this.
Called Jesus, Jesus. And it happens to be, when I looked at the score sheet, when I looked at the chords, I said, I can play this song because I can play A, I can play E, and I can play D, and I can go back and forth pretty fast between those chords. I started guitar really late in life, and anyway, no wonder that song was born. That's one of you guys' best songs, man. And it's one of let me say this. It's one of your fan favorites. I know the crowd loves it when you guys do that song. AED.
It is. It was never meant to be, though. That song was actually meant as a joke, if I'm being 100% honest.
Wow. That's great.
So you might want to edit this out of the podcast, but I'll still tell the story anyway.
We're still recording, so we'll see. We'll make the decision. We'll make an executive decision later.
You can edit it later if you want to. So, like I said, a lot of my songwriting is very personal. So it's supposed to be, whether you're a Christian or not, I want you to get something out of the song.
Right.
And ultimately for me is I hope you find the love of Christ through what I'm saying. But if it just helps you be a better person, then you know what? I'm happy with that. So we had someone come up to us, a fellow musician, and say, "You guys don't say Jesus enough in your songs." And we're like, "What? You don't say Jesus enough in your songs." So me and Ralph, who was a bass player for Crimson for over 10 years, and I love him to death.
Yeah.
We had been writing the song, but we really didn't have an intro. We really didn't have a middle part. And we were just kind of writing lyrics and little tiny things. And all of a sudden, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to spell out JSUS. And I'm going to say Jesus like 50 times in this song.
This I did not know.
Great.
I love this.
I'm like, I'm just going to say Jesus like 50 times in this song, just so that way, hey, you don't think we say Jesus in our songs? Here you go. And now we cannot play a set or a gig without playing that song, or people literally get mad at us. Yep. Why didn't you play JSUS? I'm sorry, you have to play that song. So I didn't mean it to be spiteful or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. It was kind of just like, all right, well, I'm going to write a song that says Jesus a lot.
That's great.
And
I love it.
That's how it came out, was just, okay, we're going to do this.
Right.
And
oh my gosh.
till this day, like I said, we cannot do a gig without playing that song. If I did, I'm pretty sure that everyone that knows us would come up to me and be like, why didn't you do it?
That is so
That's great.
cool.
I love it.
This is great. I'm glad that I did not press stop or pause.
No, that's perfect.
Because that is so cool. So awesome. And it's something new that I learned today about Danny Viera and Crimson Rain, you know. So and Danny, I agree. Thank you so much for doing this show today. And how can people find out more about Crimson Rain? I mean, I know you guys have a Facebook page and all that kind of stuff, but can you tell us a little bit, how do people follow you?
So we definitely have the Facebook page. If you just look up Crimson Rain Band. And then we also have crimsonrainband.com, which is our official website. It is going through some transitions at the moment. And then we have, if you look up Spotify, Apple Music, anything like that, we have 2 albums on there. If you look up Crimson Rain, the first album is Rusted and Weathered. The second one is called Live at the Mill. And so Spotify, Apple Music, and Facebook is probably, if you want to actually get in touch with us to, book us or try to do something with us, Facebook is definitely the best way. But if you go on the website, you can find our albums on there. You can find, bios, anything that has to do with us, and we'll be there for you.
That is so cool. That is so cool. I love it. All right, guys. So anything else exciting, Danny? Or are you good?
I'm good.
All right.
All right, Danny,
So,
thanks so much, man. Thank you for the kind words.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's the first podcast I've ever done.
Cool, even better.
Can't wait to release it.
Yeah.
See, I'm saying that, and at the end of a show that people have just watched, and I'm saying I can't wait till we release it. So that doesn't really make sense, but maybe I'll edit that part out, but I doubt it. It'll be fun to leave it there. So we'll see you on stage very soon, Danny.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you,
TVP
guys.
and Crimson Rain, a good
Thank you.
mix. All right.